Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Robertson Media Center at UVA. Today we're going to continue our introduction to the Canon RP by discussing how to set up the camera and what settings we recommend as a starting point for both video and photos. First, fold out the monitor screen, and it can be positioned however is best for your style of shooting, including facing the subject, for instance, if needed. This is a touch screen, so once you turn on the camera, you'll be able to select your options there on the monitor itself. Let's insert the battery on the very bottom of the camera. You can see it's a little battery open button. To insert the battery, you can see the little nodes go facing inward and down. You can see on the battery itself, it has a little arrow pointing downward, the plus and minus. So the little nodes will face toward the lens. And you slide it in, you should see a little holographic Canon logo as you slide it in, and it clicks into place. Make sure you fully charge the battery. We make no claims that batteries are adequately charged when you pick them up. Just insert it into the charger and plug it in. Insert the SD card next to the battery on the bottom of the camera, underneath that card battery open door. Notice the diagram next to the slot to help insert properly. To remove, you press in and release the card, and then you gently pull it out. Please note that the RMC does not check out SD cards, so you'll need to provide your own. We have a link in the description below for recommendations on what SD card to choose. Before you can capture an image, you'll need to choose a lens. Watch our video series on choosing a lens if you need help choosing. See the link below. It must be a Canon RF, EF, or EFS mount lens, unless you provide your own adapter. To connect the lens, first remove the body cap and place it somewhere safe. Right now the camera sensor is very vulnerable to damage and easily collects dust, so never leave the sensor uncovered unless you are mounting a lens. Always keep the body cap on if you don't have a lens connected. Also, consider where you decide to change lenses, especially when it's outside in windy, wet, or dusty conditions. Now you can remove the back cap on your lens and store it somewhere safe. You align the red dashes on the mount and on the lens and insert. With a gentle clockwise turn, you should feel the lens click into place. Make sure you take off the front lens cap and store it with the others. Please note you will have 3 caps to store. Keep them all together. A zipper pocket inside the bag would be a good choice. Always keep the front cap on the lens when not actively in use. To remove the lens, hold the release button and gently turn counterclockwise until the lens comes free. Then put the body cap over the sensor and back cap on the lens. Depending on your lens, you may have 1, 2, or even 3 adjustment rings, especially if using an adapter. This lens only has 1, and you can switch between focus and a different setting to control. Make sure you determine which ring is for focus if focusing manually. Or if you have a zoom lens, there will be a zoom ring that changes focal length, zooming in and out. And rarely, if using an older lens or a particular type of adapter, you may also have an F or T stop ring on your lens. If you're using an EF or EFS lens, make sure you first attach the lens to the adapter and then secure it to the camera. For video or long exposure photography, I recommend attaching the camera to a stabilization device, most likely a tripod. To mount the camera to a tripod, find the tripod socket on the bottom of the camera body, insert the mounting screw and tighten. Some tripods may also have a faceplate. To turn on your camera, you slide the on-off dial to on. Next, you want to choose your shooting mode. For the purposes of demonstration, we're going to put this onto video, but you can choose whichever is best for your project. For photography, beginners may want to start with full auto. For more advanced users, I'd recommend a setting like AV, TV, P, or M. Some modes only provide a small subset of available menu options, but we'll discuss shooting modes for photography in more detail in video 3. Your choice of mode will determine what settings and options you have, so they may not exactly line up with this video. So you've inserted an SD card, but you'll need to format it. So in order to set up and erase your card, called formatting, select Menu. In the menu, navigate to the wrench icon using the dial on the handle. There you will see Format Card on the first page of the wrench menu. I will warn you though that this will delete all of the footage you have on your SD card permanently. Only do this if you're 100% sure you have it backed up. We recommend formatting each card before you begin to use it, but back up anything you have on it. For recording video, you'll need to select how large the files are and how many frames per second are recorded. To select the resolution and frame rate, press Q and select Movie Rec Size. Or you can go to the first page of the menu. The Canon RP can record in 3 different resolutions. The resolution is the dimensions in pixels. The more pixels, the clearer the image, but also the larger the files. For beginners who aren't sure, I'd recommend starting with FHD 29.97, which is full high definition, 1080p at 30 frames per second. This chart shows the available resolution and frame rate combinations on this camera. If you choose Ultra HD 4K, check your media card to ensure it's fast enough and has enough memory for these large files. And you may need to use proxy files in your nonlinear editing program. Most projects will probably be shot in full HD, and I see few reasons to ever shoot in 720. There are 3 frame rate options on this camera. 23.98, or essentially 24 frames per second, that closely mimics cinematic motion on film. 29.97, or about 30 frames per second, which is the standard for video and broadcast. 59.94, or about 60 frames per second, for avoiding motion blur and fast-moving action, like sports, or for an aesthetically crisper image, or if you plan to show this clip in slow motion. A quick glance at one more video setting in the Q menu, Picture Style. Press Q and navigate to Picture Style. Choose one that best fits your project. For an advanced user, I'd recommend changing the picture style to neutral. This will give more color correction options in post-production. One final note for video, the maximum video length for a single video recording is about 29 minutes. That means if you want to record longer than that, you'll need to stop, then restart the recording. And for that reason, I would suggest a different camera for recording long events. Also, depending on the settings you have, you may fill up an SD card really quickly. Check out this chart to see how much space you'll need for your project. So now, moving on to photography settings, let's choose a new shooting mode as an example. We'll choose Program AE, which is the P on the dial. You'll first need to select the overall shape of your photograph. Press Q, then navigate to Cropping/Aspect Ratio. If you're a more advanced user, I'd suggest using Full. It is the largest size available, which is technically 3:2. Then you'll just make your detailed crop later in Photoshop. If you're a beginner, just select whatever shape is best for your project, from 16:9, which looks more like widescreen video, to 1:1, which is perfectly square. For photography, you can choose from a few options for photo size and compression. Press Q, then navigate to the Image Quality menu. Here you can choose how large the image files will be, from RAW, which is uncompressed and uncropped, to highly compressed but much smaller files. Notice that there are 2 categories, RAW and JPEG, on 2 separate lines. This allows you to simultaneously get a compressed and uncompressed image. That's 2 files for each shutter release. If you don't know what to pick, I'd recommend the largest JPEG option, labeled L, in the Image Quality menu. Then leave the default for RAW, which is a dash. That means none. If you're a more advanced user, you can select a RAW option and a JPEG option. I'd suggest CRAW for most users, and no JPEG unless you'd like a backup or a proxy image. RAW is great for professionals, but the files are very large and take up a ton of space on your device. Canon CRAW compression makes files that are 40% smaller. which are lightly compressed with minor differences in image quality. Here are the available sizes in pixels, organized by your chosen aspect ratio. Note that the image quality setting will have a major impact on how you view and edit photos later on, so make sure you watch video 4 on file processing. From there, check out the photography picture styles in the Q menu. Choose one that best suits your project. If you are a more advanced user, you may want to select neutral and make any adjustments later in Photoshop. This is a very brief overview. If you want more advanced photography settings in the menu, check out the links below. Coming up next, we'll begin to operate the camera, so stay with us.